Good day, Dragon Slayers. Once again, I am honored and most grateful to have my two colleagues in crime here, my son Seth and my buddy Todd Lee, and we are broadcasting from Todd's studio, also known as a Bombshelter, which is very appropriately named in these times.
Right.
Speaking of which, I've had a couple of comments about what's going on overseas in Palestine, and I don't want to throw too much gasoline on the fire, but I would say that throughout human history, we've had a variety of cultures that have contended that their young warriors can get to the hereafter by participating in some kind of genocide. That was something that inspired both of the Axis powers in World War II, and it's currently operating. And I would just say that we need to throw into great skepticism cultures that advance that as a core principle. We will not survive as a human species, particularly given our potential to destroy each other with nukes and with various other challenges such as bioweapons, unless we learn to cooperate in behalf of all of humanity. That said, today I'd like to talk about longevity. And I'm going to throw out there just some key thoughts about survival in life. And I've given something of the 10 P's necessary for survival. The first one is power, to know that power comes from within you, or if you wish, you can channel power from a spiritual perspective. But you do have the power to control your life. You have to determine what is it within your scope that you can control. Second, purpose. We live best if we have a purpose, if we know what we're doing, ideally, if that purpose can do something for not only ourselves, but for humanity. Third, people. We all need people. We need a support system in order to survive. We need friends and family. That has great meaning. Protein, to stand for diet, and we'll talk about a lot about that today. Posterity. Think of yourself as contributing to posterity. And I think the take home lesson is if we have contributed to bad karma in our life, let's figure out a way to reverse it. All of us have been ignorant at various points of our lives, ignorant to the point of sometimes even cruelty. But we need to realize that we need to live in such a way that we add benefit and kindness to this world. Uh, Planning makes sense. Think about it. Uh, One of my survival decisions was when I was in medical school. I was very fortunate to have as one of my lectures in anatomy one of the pioneers in auto safety, a guy who pioneered seatbelts. And Seth, one of the instrumental values that I demonstrated to your mom when I was courting her is that my car had seatbelts and I had installed them. Don't take unnecessary risks. Prosperity. In order to survive and thrive, we need to think about planning for the future and to take care of ourselves and our obligations without making a decision like putting everything on black for our retirement plan.
Right.
um,
As tempting as it may be.
Physicality, got to keep moving. Potential, beware of your potential and grow into it. And finally, path, to indicate that wilderness should be part of our lives. And as a part of that, day spectrum light. And I was going to ask Todd to show his own day spectrum light for those as we're approaching the time of seasonal affective disorder in the Northern Hemisphere.
It's my happy light.
Okay.
Go, Todd.
So,
Yes, sir.
okay. So I would say, as for longevity, I want to talk about the lessons I learned from childhood on. Like all of us, I benefited from negative models. both of my parents, at least early in my childhood, smoked. They were not terribly athletic, although I would say that both my parents enjoyed working in the garden. But I did learn early on, and particularly in medical school, that the decisions we make in our youth will have impact for the rest of our lives. And I recall, I don't know if I've shared the story with my audience, but when I was a kid, I was working as a lifeguard in New York City. And at that time, you could drink when you were about 19 years old. And I recall going into a bar where there were some very attractive young ladies. And in order to impress them, I thought I would offer them a cigarette.
Oh, we did hear this story.
You already heard the story?
Oh, yes, and you coughed.
Okay, enough of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the early,
I mean, it's a great story.
Anyway, an early life lesson was that, well, for those who weren't in that story, I offered a cigarette to a young lady, and I very much tried to channel Humphrey Bogart in lighting her cigarette. And she said, "Aren't you going to have one?" And I proceeded to take one out and inhaled and proceeded to cough, and that was a disaster. And as a consequence, I never smoked because I was incompetent, thank God.
Right.
But I also learned that not to use substances, and I've learned the value of diet and exercise. Okay, let's look at that. Let's start with the whole issue of UGG, exercise. Movement is essential for us, and I think we are a species that survived based on our capacity to move. If you think about where we were in the African veldt, we very much were hunters, and we were stalkers, and we approached animals with spears, and that was essential to our survival. So long distance running and walking was essential to the tribe, and we were nomadic. And that's, I think, central to us all. And I think being physical has been associated with a variety of positive effects on us. One is it's good for our brain. It increases the turnover of those neurohumors responsible for building connections. We've looked at studies of kids who were in good physical education classes, and those kids were actually able to excel academically because of that. Long-term survival is predicated on our capacity to move. Okay, next, diet. And this is something I think that has some controversy, but let us assume this, that what we refer to as a paleo diet goes back to times when we were hunters and gatherers. And those kinds of foods that likely we relied upon when we were in that life phase included lean meats, animal meats, perhaps fish, and certain vegetables. And that continues to be an anchor for those of us that can tolerate those meats. I would say that my personal diet is biased towards lean protein sources such as fish and lean mammalian beef. Ideally, if you can find it, game or grass-fed beef. I'm very skeptical of chicken. Chicken itself contains hormones that actually are deleterious to human health. And I could say nothing good about chicken or turkey in terms of dietary source. Most people don't believe that or see that, but a careful exam.
What about organic stuff? Like, don't they have like organic chicken or something? You don't need to worry about that, or you think those are suspect too?
I think those are suspect too. And I think in order to make a true organic poultry, it would be cost prohibitive. Yeah,
I eat a lot of chicken.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It does seem like there's, it does seem like it wouldn't be hard to create an organic chicken, but maybe Maybe
Well, there may
something
be.
gets into something.
Well, no, I'm just saying that whole chicken with great suspicion,
Okay,
okay, or
fair
turkey
enough.
for that matter. My wish was that when the pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock, they were right by some rather prolific lobster beds. And had they really used their imagination, we would be having lobster for Thanksgiving rather than turkey.
Right. They just chased
Sounds
the
good.
big dumb bird.
So what's healthy? Should people be taking like big, like giant steaks or something? Big beefy
Well,
things
okay,
like
okay. Well, no, that is not without hazard itself either.
okay.
And I would say this, that I know that there are a number of vegans out there that are going to dispute what I have to say, but I would say that if you can find lean protein, such as good grass-fed beef, bison, and the equivalent, you're probably in pretty good shape. Some people will dispute that, but I would indicate that that is the case. If you're going to choose fish that are lower on the carnivore hierarchy among fish, ideally sardines. Uh, they're a pretty low form in terms of the hierarchy. Conversely, swordfish is probably not a good idea if you wish to avoid heavy metal toxicity such as mercury. So sardines aren't too shabby.
The sound engineer is taking the pen away from you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay,
Very good.
okay, thanks so much, Todd.
So
Okay.
eat more fish, and not only fish, but the ones that are low on the food chain for
Yes.
fish.
And eggs aren't too shabby.
Hmm.
The one product of poultry that might be useful are eggs. Now,
How about
mind
fish
you,
eggs?
could be fish eggs too.
Yeah, those are the ultimate, right? The superfood,
Yeah.
fish eggs.
Well, if a trout will eat it, I'm sure it's okay for us.
Right.
Okay. But the point being is that now this is absent food sensitivities. I know people can have sensitivities to beef and animal protein. They can, certainly eggs themselves are high on the suspect list for people that have food allergies. But if you can tolerate it, it's a pretty good source of protein.
Right. I personally have Crohn's disease, so I have tons of dietary restrictions that I should be paying attention to, but I do not.
And so what for that? What do you tend? What would be better? Is it something that's a
Low fiber.
like more low fiber, and then are vegetables helpful, or it's not actually that? It's
If
more
you
like
cook, if you really cook vegetables, they're cool. Raw vegetables
see.
are tough.
Got it.
A lot of proteins are good.
That's good.
Gluten seems to be a problem. I mean, I can tolerate it. I'm not allergic, but it's not ideal. But I mean, honestly, I was diagnosed in 1998, so I've been dealing with it for a minute, and I've given up on the strict different elimination diets and all these different kinds of diets. I just kind of just stay with what works digestively, not necessarily what works health wise, which is terrible strategy.
Well, but
So lots of chicken, you know what I mean? Lots of mild things like chicken and, rice, burritos, refried beans, lots of that kind of stuff.
So you're able to, when I condemn chicken, or at least throw a caution up there, it still is an anchor to your diet.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we're not going to change that. I'm just throwing out some things that are my biases. But I would also say,
and I pay my mortgage with a turkey sandwich. So
I see. So that's good too. Yeah, we don't want to talk down the sponsor here.
Yeah.
Do you have issues with like spices too, or that's not a problem for you? I'm just curious.
I was raised to avoid spicy foods and fish.
Interesting.
Just because it was what my mom hated. And then when I got older, I started eating fish and love spicy food. So,
interesting.
Once
they're not bad for you in terms of
they're probably
digestion.
not. The spicy's probably not great, but I just take it in moderation usually.
Yeah, I mean, I like spices too. I think they seem to be seem to have a good effect. I don't know, Dad. Did you want to comment on any of this stuff?
This guy's got me thinking a lot more recently that my mindset and my stress levels are directly affecting my gut health.
Which I think is very much the case.
Yes, because when I was stressed and losing jobs and having a tough time just getting through college and stuff is when it hit me. So I was at my most stressed of my lifetime when I went down for my first surgery. So
what I would say, Todd, is that people with Crohn's disease, I believe, are the canaries in the coal mine. I mean, those kinds of things that provoke you may indeed provoke all of us,
right,
if we listen to it. There's a concept called the leaky gut syndrome, which Crohn's disease really stands in the front of, and that is we train some of us, and I know Seth and I have that legacy as well. Some of us will transport proteins across the gut that are pro-inflammatory.
right.
So, for my part, I attempt to avoid gluten. And I have a, lactose sensitivity and things such as that. So we're very conscious of those things that trigger us. But to your point, I would say also that these dietary indulgences do affect everything. They affect our resistance to infection, they affect our ability to move, and our capacity to think optimally. I encourage people to try a challenge diet. And again, I know you've gone down that path.
I've gone down all of the paths.
And the concept of the challenge diet is you regress your diet to the most phylogenetically primitive
and
diet.
You just add a little something.
Squashes,
right.
lean proteins,
right.
And then you kind of progressively add things to see if you have triggers. Now, Seth, somehow, since I've watched you eat, you seem to get by on a diet that relies highly on peanut butter.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, my diet, I do certainly have fish and I have cheese, but I just don't eat a lot of the meats, and that was partly because I seem to have issues where if I ate a lot of meat, I would get neuropathy. So it's just sort of where I'm going. so I tend to do lots of veggies, but also some cheese and some fish.
So you're just listening to your body, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is kind of what I've gotten to. Instead of doing anything strict dietary wise, I've just listened to my body over the years and just be like, okay, don't do that. Like I haven't touched hard alcohol in 25 years.
Wow, really. That's smart.
Yeah, I mean maybe like a little bit of tequila in a margarita at some point with dinner or something, but never. Just I had to just take that out of my lifetime, out of my life, because it will rock your intestines like really bad.
No kidding. I had no idea. That's interesting.
And then I drank beer for quite a while and then gave that up years ago. But beer's tough because it's also, tough on the belly. It just really is. So yeah, omitting alcohol was big for me. Just as far as
great.
Yeah.
And that's interesting too, because I think
people
like think of
straight edge or anything. I'm not like the preachy guy about alcohol. It just doesn't work for me,
Yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, I think people think of removing alcohol for the other health effects, or at least removing significant alcohol. But in your case, it sounds like it's also just the digestive effects, right?
Well, I think it kind of, in a weird way, bailed me out of potential issues with the other part of it, the alcoholism part.
Right.
Just can't tolerate alcohol on a regular basis in a large amounts. It just doesn't work with my system. So
makes sense.
Allow me to put a word in for avoidance of all ethanol, and that is that, at one time the word was out there that if we drank red wine, we would get high concentrations of resveratrol. But actually, longer term, continuing alcohol use will affect our brain,
right,
and can be predisposed to neuropathy. And if you wish a source of resveratrol, you can get it in drinking grapefruit juice or taking resveratrol supplements.
That is, grape juice is not as fun as wine, listeners. I will vouch for that. Wine is much more fun than grape juice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was a public service announcement.
And well, I mean, was it grape juice or grapefruit juice? Because there's a distinction, right? Which one were you advocating for, Dad?
Well, actually, grapefruit is a great hydrator after working out. It's high in potassium, and
But you were saying grape juice, right? I wasn't sure which one you were saying.
I was saying grape juice, or
Oh, okay.
the fruit itself. Grapes are like, for
Got it.
example, as when you came to visit my house, you noticed that my own effort at horticulture included grapevines, as well as an unlimited supply of Santa Rosa plums.
Yes, it was lovely.
Okay. But yes, resveratrol, I think, is another biohack that you can use, and consider avoiding the red wine. But the other lesson here is that, Seth, you've individualized this in a way by tuning into your body, and you find that you thrive on something like peanut butter, which some people can say would be a pro-inflammatory substance, but you get by. And I will share that with you, that when I was running, the best restorative food for me was peanut butter.
Really interesting.
Works really well for me in every way.
Yeah, I craved it.
Yeah, I love the stuff.
By the way, it should be old-fashioned, not hydrogenated.
Oh,
okay.
I told Seth, was just like, well, how are you going to fit into this, biohack conversation? I'm like, I'm the guy that does everything wrong. I'm the unhealthy guy.
Tell me,
so what's wrong with hydrogenated? So hydrogenated, you're concerned about coating the arteries or something? Is that what we're worried about? Like hydrogenated, it's a fat, right? You're concerned
cholesterol.
about
cholesterol. Hydrogenated oils are the food industry's equivalent of styrofoam. And if you've ever tried to recycle styrofoam, you know that it's virtually a useless recycling product. And that's the same thing that the hydrogenated fats do to our body. So these are things that you want to avoid lining your arteries with if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think just based on your longevity, you become the authority on this entire conversation,
I agree.
Because you're in great shape, great diet, good mental health. Like you're the guy.
Well, let me tell you about the path.
Am I crazy, Seth?
I agree. Okay. He's the man.
Right.
Okay, but let's talk about the path, and let's be humble about that. Okay.
Well, and you talk about the path because, like I said, you're the authority.
Okay. So what I learned about the path is I had a family history of heart disease that certainly imperiled my father and probably a fair proportion of my family. And I learned early on that I didn't want to do that. So by the time I was in medical school, as part of what I would consider a health regimen, I was very conscious of what I was putting into my body, and equally conscious of regular exercise. Only later did I discover what the right things were for me to put into my body.
Right, because that just takes life experience.
It does. Yeah. And, I used to do crazy things. Like when Seth was a kid, I would train for races. And I remember I would meet Seth and Rachel and Christine at a local running track after running there. And then after which we would all go to Baskin Robbins.
Sugarload.
Yeah.
Right.
Which made absolutely no sense at all. But so, I've been there, but I soon discovered that, that was not quite the way to go. And then I think when you are, first of all, when you have a life as a athlete, and I would just say I have minimal athletic endowments, but I continued to push the boundaries of what I could do.
Right.
You realize that throughout your life, particularly at my age, you're always in training for something. So training became huge. That is, I looked at things such as, obviously, endurance training, but then I discovered, my God, I had to strengthen my core. So my routine became something like this. I get up in the morning and I do core exercises. And then I do some bench presses and some curls. And then do some indoor cycling and rowing. And that quick workout takes about a half hour.
Right.
And then predicated on time available, I'll be working out either by hiking or swimming. And those are, high payoff exercises in the sense that the reward to risk ratio is pretty good. Conversely, a few years ago, I felt compelled to give up alpine skiing, not because of any athletic injuries, but I looked at the statistics on it and decided I didn't want to spend a lot of time with orthopedic surgeons repairing knees and so on.
Right.
So I morphed that into Nordic skiing. Now, that's a personal decision. And I'm delighted. And Seth, you're still an elite alpine skier, aren't you?
I'm certainly not elite, and I really don't ski very much. I did ski a couple of years ago, but nice of you to say. Todd, do you ski?
I grew up skiing. I haven't skied in 15 years, but
wow, right.
Yeah, since we were little, it was kind of like the fishing thing with my dad. Skiing, he would come take us out of school, my brother and I, like, the boys both have doctor's appointments today.
Really? That's amazing.
Take us skiing on a regular, there would be a bluebird day with beautiful snow, and he would just show up at school and take us out of school.
That's amazing. Must have been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. But as I got older and injured and less athletic and more into art and computers and playing video games, and just kind of like moved away from athleticism, exercise, all of those things, that was when the sickness creeped in. You know what I mean? Right around college, stressful college time, terrible diet, coming off of a habit of not exercising and stuff. Just it got me.
So what do you do now for exercise?
I don't. I silkscreen. I do a lot of pushing squeegees and bending, do toe touches and picking up things. And I guess I do a lot of calisthenics in this room.
But you are going to be swimming, right?
I'm going to be swimming. Okay. I meat with your lady on Monday.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, okay. I'm super excited about the swimming thing because I grew up swimming and it was my favorite. So I kind of have to trick myself into exercising. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I have to walk the dog. Well, there I am exercising, but in my mind, I'm out there with my dog and she can go and check everything out, but that's exercise.
Absolutely.
Swimming is an enjoyable thing for me, but it tricks me into exercise,
That's terrific.
Seth modeled a bit after the great uncle that we referred to last week.
Was that Uncle Max?
Uncle Max.
Okay. Yeah, great memory, Todd. You're right.
Yeah. So I talked several years ago to his daughter, Martha, who's still alive, and asked her what was so special about Uncle Max and his survival. And she said, he walked to work every day.
Wow.
And Seth does the same thing. Essentially,
after I take the train and the car, then I walk a little.
Well, no, the expectation is that you're not walking from Darien to Manhattan, but
yes,
you do walk from the train stop to your workplace, right?
That's true. Yes.
And you regularly walk when you get home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
This guy said he was my age, but he looks like he's 28. So yeah, the walking seems to be working, buddy.
That's right. Good luck.
He's actually 72, but
good genes.
Yeah,
right?
So
that's right. That's right. Yeah, he's got great genes.
Yeah.
So check it out. I live 1.1 miles away from work. Should I just start walking?
Wow, maybe. That's a great idea, right?
It's straight uphill, straight downhill, and then straight uphill home. So I might hitch a ride home.
That's vigorous.
Again, part of this is be cautious about risk taking. Do not walk when it's icy out.
Right.
Ah.
That's not what I need, is a slip and fall. That sounds terrible.
Definitely.
So you have a smartwatch, don't you?
I do.
Does it measure how far you walk?
It does.
So in a normal work day here at Beach Hut Deli, right on McCarran, by the way, not far from the freeway.
Right at the devil's intersection of McCarran and Las Brisas. Man. About 3 miles a day, something like that. Just around here.
Hey, do you have a smartwatch, Seth?
No, I'm not that advanced.
So, no, there's a Hanukkah gift for you. Okay.
Lovely.
Well, why not? You can.
I just haven't felt the need to have something monitoring me.
So is that your exercise regimen, Seth? The walk to work?
Well, and then as my father mentioned, sometimes usually after work, I'll take a little walk around
But no,
outside.
no gym, no rowing, no stationary bicycles,
Yeah,
nothing
we
like
we
that.
do. Sometimes I'll swim. We do have we have a membership. I don't go that much, so maybe
Right.
you know.
Hopefully, I'm gonna go. I'm getting a membership starting Monday because I got
Good,
hooked up from him, and I'm super excited to swim. Like
great.
it gives me butterflies. So I think we're gonna trick Todd into exercising here pretty soon.
Well, I
That's
would say
awesome.
this, that one of the cool things about exercise at a gym, if you go to a gym regularly, is you make all sorts of friends there.
Right.
You
Oh,
know,
I'm
Hmm.
that guy too.
so
That's great.
people will cheer you on. This morning, it was actually fear of being called a coward when I looked at the temperature outside and I saw all my buddies swimming, and I needed to finish my laps. Otherwise, the rumor would be out there that I was afraid, too cowardly to enter the cold water.
Yeah. See, I don't think I'm gonna be able to swim there in the winter.
Okay. No, 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 no. The wetsuit. Join me. The wetsuit was great. You said you got a wetsuit, man, didn't you?
And then it didn't fit, so now I'm sending it back, and I might just get a long sleeve, just wetsuit shirt and wear board shorts or something. But when I put the shorty wetsuit on,
Yeah.
I got like claustrophobia because it was
Oh
too small, first
gosh.
of all. But when my shoulders snapped into it, when you first
Yeah.
get the chest part on, I couldn't easily take it back off again. I got all panicky. It was crazy.
Well, actually, I specialize in wetsuit anxiety.
I see.
Yeah, I think I may have invented a new anxiety,
Well,
wetsuit
for those
anxiety.
of you who are considering a wetsuit by a swimming pool, make sure you have an opportunity to go into a steam room following your swim,
All right,
because extricating yourself from a wetsuit is itself an art.
right.
But it has really saved my life because I can now swim in the winter.
Right. And that's what I want for myself, but I get the shivers so bad, like, whoa, and it's just the worst.
So, but you say you can get a wetsuit top.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm gonna try the triple X and
Uh-huh.
see if that one works. And I guess the theory is that the wetsuit will get smaller as you exercise, right?
Oh,
Uh-huh.
interesting.
So maybe get down to like a double extra large wetsuit eventually. But
Right.
Hmm.
Wouldn't that be a great day?
it would be an amazing day.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we're gonna get on the swimming train
That's
and maybe
terrific.
and maybe walk into work with the puppy a couple times a week.
So let's go back
Very
to
nice.
listening to your body. One of the other advantages of exercise is it will tell you right away what kind of diet you have. And
Oh,
so
how
I've
so?
learned well, I'll tell you one lesson I learned, which both you guys probably were witness to. Uh, for a while, I was a practitioner of a modified fast. So my game was to live on adrenaline throughout the day as a physician and hydrate myself and then go work out in the pool. Well, I soon discovered by the end of the day, particularly after COVID and the postural hypotension associated with that, that is, my blood pressure would fall out, that without adequate protein, I would fall. And
Mm,
Right.
so you learn that if you're going to go through these things, there's all sorts of things that you need to do, particularly as you get older. So one of the things I learned is that before I work out, I take a decent source of electrolytes. And, one of the best pre workout fuels are things like tomato juice.
Ugh.
Okay. Or,
doesn't seem like it's going over that well. I
I'm
mean, you can
sure it
always,
works great.
yeah,
hey,
maybe
I've
like,
watched a lot of podcasts recently, and I think that the outtakes are that's the gold.
yeah,
That's
that's
where the
right.
gold lies.
okay.
But
So,
yes,
so
I
how about water and a little bit of Gatorade or something like something? Is
Oh,
that okay?
Gatorade is a crock. It's
Oh,
crap.
Oh
crock.
wow.
But I mean,
Okay.
electrolytes aren't right.
Well,
You're
no,
concerned about
no,
the
but
sugar in
electrolytes are
Gatorade?
fine. Yeah, no, electrolytes are fine. You can get
Yeah.
electrolyte replacement solutions, and that's the other thing I use. You can get from many different sources: the shopping center in the sky, Amazon, Costco, Sam's Club, or whatever, you can get electrolyte replacement solutions. Just make certain that they don't contain toxins. So the other thing I did, for example, this morning, I was fasting, but I made certain that I took my electrolytes. The other thing you can use is lemon water. That's a decent source of some potassium.
I just had to do the liquid diet fast for a colonoscopy 2 days ago. That was fun.
Oh God,
Yeah,
that's rough. So I don't know what did we learn from that.
That's not fun. When you have Crohn's disease, you have a lot of colonoscopies, though. It's
I see.
It's like an annual party.
Oh gosh, that's rough.
Yeah, it's tough. But like he said, you can make it with the electrolytes and hydration. You can easily go 24 hours without having food. I can, at least. I found that out a couple days ago.
That's interesting.
Okay. All right, back to it.
Longevity,
yes. Well, you quickly learn, if you're exercising, what works for you and what doesn't. And I would say one of the issues about exercise is make certain that you work on the following: balance. That's huge. So do things such as dance, do asymmetrical weights, Tai Chi, do all you can to improve your balance skills.
Does bicycle count or no?
Cycling does. Okay. However, cycling is something that I, particularly looking at the drivers around here, I have been very reluctant to resume doing because, again, the risk reward doesn't look that great, although I'm all over indoor cycling and hiking. So, I'm looking at this point in my life, I'm saying, okay, how am I going to avoid what is the most important terminal event for elderly, and that is falls and fracture.
Right.
So, you have to be pretty vigilant about that. But I would say that balance is huge. Rhythm is important. So if you can dance, dance. I still try to play basketball because that is important for both balance and rhythm.
Right.
The other thing is strength training. We lose muscle mass readily as we age. And, Seth, even at your tender age, it's important to do some strength training because it's your muscle mass that's going to be able to sustain you through life. And, Seth and I are a bit ectomorphic. And so we have to be particularly vigilant about that.
Ectomorphic?
Lean.
Okay.
Geeky. Big heads, long bodies.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Hoopsters.
Yes.
Hoopsters, right.
Right. But in order to survive, you need to sustain that lean muscle mass, which is whenever you can, do weight training. And what I would suggest, since it helps build tendons and ligaments as well as muscle, that you do multiple reps with weights that you can comfortably handle to the point of exhaustion. And then you continue to push those boundaries.
I'm so blessed. Multiple employees of mine are trainers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I mean, I could literally get one of these dudes to come help me teach me all the different machines and, because I want to do some sort of a workout, but not one that kicks my ass to the point of where I never want to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
I need to ease into it big time because I am the definition of off the couch.
Well, but one of the things that your trainers will do is, and the other P that I forgot here in this list is persistence.
There it is. Okay. You forgot persistence. The irony there is thick, right?
So the issue with persistence is do it and do it regularly, even though you're saying, oh God, like this morning, I'm getting up and I'm thinking, okay, you have to be a role model. So don't be a phony. Do something that models what you're going to be talking about. So this morning, I got up at the crack of dawn and said, okay, I want to be able to do something today that models for myself and also models for our audience. Now, that usually gets me out of bed in the morning anyway. It's often I have time to get a decent workout in, but it really sustains me to say, okay, my expectations of myself are this is what is part of my identity.
Which I remember so vividly about throwing the legs over the bed and walking the dog every day for 5 or 6 years, almost 7 days a week, was I'd see myself on that, walking on the top of the the bluff and seeing the sunrise. And I'm like, let's get out there. It's time. Let's do it. It's mental. It's so mental. And it helps you so much physically, and physiologically. But it starts with the brain, man. It starts with the motivation. It starts with, like you said, the thought that got you out of bed to get it going.
So in the book Dragon Slaying, available on Amazon, both in hardbound and in paperback,
great job,
as well as Kindle for those of you that
and we're working on an audiobook. Let them know.
Oh yeah, we are working on the audiobook, and after Zach gets to the SATs, he has agreed at least to do a trial run reading the introduction. But as we talk about in Dragon Slaying, what I repeat again and again with those of you who are willing to read the book, and also anybody who's willing to work with me, is the concept of visualizing, see it. Next, ironically, is to do it.
Right.
And the idea is you will see something and you'll do something, but you won't quite yet believe it. But as you continue to do it, you believe it.
Right.
And then step 4 is to become it. That is, a core part of your identity is this is what I am. I'm the guy that goes to the gym 4 days a week. I'm the guy that walks the dog in the morning. I'm the guy that has learned that eating clean foods allows me to feel better longer term. And I'm the guy that wants to think about myself not at your current age of 42, but how it's going to be when you're 62 or 72.
Right. 50.
50.
Crazy. I cannot believe I just turned 50.
I can't believe my son is 54.
I believe that. You and my dad are in the same boat.
We've all been outed on our ages.
Yeah, there it was. At first it was our full names. Now our ages are out there. Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Now, if you guys really want to be transparent with our audience, please name your first car and your social security number.
Right. Your mother's maiden name. I really wasn't sure how I was going to fit into the conversation today, and I'm really glad that I jumped in and talked about it, because you guys are going to see a transformation here with the chubby dude sitting in the foreground.
Todd, you're every man in the sense that we've all been there.
Right.
Yeah, and that's great that this will be motivation, right? This is a good motivation.
Oh, it's humongous. This whole room exists because I got my proverbial shit together. You know what I mean? Like this entire, the deli is more my brother's thing, and he is incredible at it. But when it came to getting this room up and profitable and going and paying the rent, there's no way I would have gotten that done without getting my head straight. So now it's time to do the physical part.
That's great.
Let me offer another thought, and that is, the mind tricks you do to get into this. Most of us at various levels are struggling with what I refer to as the malignant triad, some degree of feeling powerless, hopeless, and helpless. I mean, it begins when, we're a little kid. Can we really do that? And then after a while, there are bleak times in our lives. And what happens is we incorporate this internal negative voice that says, you're not going to be able to do this. Or who are you kidding, man?
Right.
There's no way you're going to do this. And then after that, you have no hope. So the task here is to risk visualizing yourself being that person, and then look at your potential, look at your life potential, look at, for example, Todd, your case, you're a special kind of genius. I don't know. Can you show the wall here?
We can do it with your camera. How's that?
That's good. Who did that mural?
My friend Lopan. 4,000 Lopan 4,000 on Instagram. Okay. Right there. There's the Mandalorian. There is the Voltron. And
what inspired you to do that?
Inspired me to have the murals painted?
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to be surrounded by creative juices, know.
Is this teed up right over your
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, the idea is, but you do have it's very clear that you have enormous creative potential.
Right.
So for those who aren't part of this, Todd is a host of a regular radio broadcast,
This is true.
and is that also called the Bombshelter?
It's called the Bombshelter. Yes, it's there's actually a mobile app if anyone's interested in listening to some edited for the radio, so we have no cuss words and positive, conscious, uplifting hip hop music. Just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store, search for the Bombshelter, and grab the app. It's playing good music 24 hours a day.
That's
At some
great.
point, we hope to tag team something on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're syndicated on the FM airwaves in a couple cities also. But the app is what we're really pushing right now, and worldwide listenership has just been unbelievable. It's so cool to have someone be like, "Shout out from Germany." It just is. I love it. It gives me the goosebumps.
So what a point I want to make is that is an enormous creative path for you.
Right.
Plus, the other thing that you do is silk screening,
which I absolutely am. It's probably the visual art that I'm most passionate about is screen printing.
Okay,
That's
so
great.
Printmaking in general, I just think it's so cool.
So when you talk to you, you're passionate about that.
Oh, beyond passionate, yeah.
Yeah, and you want to continue doing that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so your heroic self-transformation, if you will, is to not only be a very decent entrepreneur, and we'll talk a little bit about that at some point,
Right.
but also to channel that part of you that is your artist.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And
because I love making things on the computer, right? Illustrating things and doing graphic design, quote unquote. But then taking that file and putting it into a 1,000-year-old process like screen printing. Wow, it's pretty cool.
So one of my boyhood heroes was Batman.
Right.
And the whole idea is, what do you do by day and what do you do by night? And so, by day I do certain things, but by night I'm looking at ways to harness my creativity.
Yes.
Seth is very much a Batman.
I see.
By day you're a quant guy. You look at how do you
yeah.
determine the fair market value of debt instruments. You're consulting with all these financial types, and you're, as Carl Sagan would say, you're responsible for billions and billions of dollars.
Certainly not me. You got the wrong guy.
Well, we can talk a little bit about that too, because I think you're kind of heroic in terms of how you invest. But the other thing, by night is where you harness your creativity. The stuff with the Ronin Institute, the stuff on diet is true. Genealogy.
In your spare time writing papers on celiac disease, I heard, right?
Right.
Hey, I have a quick question. How does that's always mentioned in the Crohn's conversation? How is that associated with Crohn's disease, celiac disease?
That's a great question. I know there's an association. I guess I don't know the specifics, but I guess you could say they both have to do with inflammation of the gut, but I just don't know the specifics there.
I remember early in my journey, they said, "Oh, you're negative for celiac disease." I remember that conversation happening. So
yeah,
I just was curious because
that's a good question, and I don't even remember. I think celiac, if I'm remembering correctly, is associated with ulcerative colitis, but I don't know. I don't know how what the association is with Crohn's. So I guess we could look at that.
They're probably all equally fun.
Yes.
Well, it's probably all part of the leaky gut, isn't it? There are various manifestations of the leaky gut.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And all autoimmune, I'm assuming also.
Good. Seth, would you like to comment at all about vitamin D?
Yes. So I have a novel hypothesis that significant doses of vitamin D are a factor in the development of celiac disease, and sort of the gist of that is that on why that might be the case is so vitamin D upregulates one side of the immune system, and it essentially there's specifically with celiac. You can look at a lot of the diseases that are precursors of celiac, and many of them, I shouldn't say precursors, maybe associated with celiac, and a lot of these diseases have increases in vitamin D. as part of them. So there's things like hyperparathyroid, I think, is associated with celiac disease, and of course that upregulates. Essentially, a parathyroid hormone regulates vitamin D as part of it, and that's one of the associations. There's a lot of things like cancers can be associated with celiac disease, and that could be because some of these things upregulate vitamin D. There's a number of them. I don't remember them offhand, but it's an interesting possibility.
But Joe Rogan told me to take 10,000 UIs a day.
Yeah, I think he's
I use UIs.
Yeah, I'm very suspicious of that, because one other thing is that if you go out in the sun, people say you get tons of vitamin D, which is absolutely the case. But if you take it orally, it's not like you can. It's different from the sun, because that process with the sun, it's not like you'll. There's something that regulates how much you get, but with orally, you just get it all in that one shot, and sort of like,
right.
It's gotta go somewhere. But another thing that some people do is they say, well, people are often low in vitamin D, but they're just looking at one form of it. There's the 25 form, which is what's normally measured, and the 125 is the thing that's often like the active form, and what's high in a lot of these autoimmune diseases. And so if you look at your 25, you might think you're actually low in vitamin D, but the 125 could be quite high, and so it depends on the situation, but that can be potentially damaging, would be my thinking.
That's so interesting. I have absorption issues, obviously. I have to take B12 injections, and I take a ton of vitamin D just to get
Really?
my daily allowance. Yeah, because of just absorption issues and the fact that I'm literally missing parts of my intestines. Right.
Right.
And I didn't know this, but certain parts of the intestines are known for the absorption of certain vitamins and minerals and stuff. And so, yeah, I've always taken B12 injected, and then tons of D. Joe Rogan had nothing to do with it. It was
Yeah.
definitely physician. My gastroenterologist actually was like,
You need to do it.
do tons of D. And
Now,
then he and I checked my levels at some point. It was a little low. It wasn't terrible, but we increased the amount of D I take on a regular basis. So I don't know. That's interesting. I just wonder if it's the same for somebody with absorption issues like I have.
that's a great point. And I guess one thing is you can get enough D from sunlight. Like it's not the amount in a normal diet is not very high. So I'm sort of I guess suspicious of the need to have significant doses orally.
Gotcha.
But everybody's different, right? And I guess it might be interesting to see what's your 125 level versus what's your 25 level, because the 25
Right.
level is normally the one that's measured, but that can be low even when the 125 is high, which is kind of confusing. And
I live in a bomb shelter, Seth.
yeah,
So
I hear
I
you.
don't see the sun.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And if it's good for you, it's good for you.
So is this the Happy Light segue?
Oh,
Is that where we're at with that? Is that vitamin D, Doc? The
yes,
Happy
yeah,
Light, or
absolutely. So vitamin D is, I guess another thing to be careful of with vitamin D is, in big doses, sometimes it can affect digestion, because it can affect things like constipation or diarrhea, and then also,
Seth, which way?
I think, well, for me it's constipation, but I think some people get diarrhea if they take big doses.
Oh,
And
so high doses will cause bowel dysfunction.
yeah, I think so. Yes, it will. And if you take a whole lot, then you can get calcification too. But
right?
that you have to take a whole lot typically.
Well, it's
And
kind of interesting because you're talking about then a double-edged sword.
yeah,
Really, because from my perspective as a psychiatrist, I measure vitamin D because adequate levels of vitamin D are permissive factors to allow people to recover from depression.
yeah.
But you're saying that excessive levels are pro-inflammatory
Yeah, and
and trigger.
another thing on that though is if you look at the 25 levels, you can have very low 25 levels and high 125. So if you, I mean, I guess what it depends on what's causing your depression, right? If your depression is due to some autoimmune process, it's very possible you have low 25 and high 125. And by giving the vitamin D, I mean, I don't know. Some people think that'll help normalize things, but you could make it so that your 125 goes even higher, which would mean you'd have more of a potential autoimmune reaction, possibly.
Conversely, is a possibility that if you supplement with the 25 D3, that would drive down the 125.
Um, I don't. I mean, I guess it's possible. I don't think so because the usual thing is you convert from 25 to 125.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, to your point, I guess the theory is you're only supposed to convert when you need it. But it seems like I mean, there's a whole group of people that convert, and have issues. I mean, there's um, a lot of I think of celiac as one potential disease where that occurs in, but others have trying to think of what are some of the other ones, but there's definitely diseases like that where you have calcification. I don't even remember the names of them though.
So when you say autoimmune lends to depression, is that physiological? Or is that just, oh, I have this autoimmune thing, I'm bummed out, so I'm
Actually,
depressed?
depression is in theory an inflammatory disease.
Wow.
Yeah, so it could be so if you if you're feeling negative, I mean, maybe part of it could be due to some sort of autoimmune process that's has some what maybe it's not a massive effect, but some sort of more minor effect on the mind or something.
Gotcha.
Uh,
So,
So it could be physical and mental simultaneously for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
so,
Because I can honestly say as I got on the proper infusion and got on the proper medication and my symptoms for my Crohn's went away almost entirely, my mental state of being went up, right?
Oh, that's
Because I
great.
just,
So
yeah,
that's interesting. So
definitely the
maybe,
quality of life just skyrocketed at some point when the meds became effective.
yeah.
so
So I
if
mean,
you
maybe that's nutritional. Maybe it is something related to an autoimmune process. Who knows, right? I mean,
Right.
Crohn's is certainly autoimmune, right?
Yes, sir.
So what we try to target when we're trying to recover is inflammation everywhere. If you look at the phenomenon called fibromyalgia, the fibromyalgia, I believe, is in full spectrum is depression with the inflammatory elements that cause muscle and joint pain. So again, we need to back up on inflammation and long-term inflammation related to dietary indiscretion, stress, lack of exercise, not feeling belonging, all those stress risk factors can be a predisposition to dementia. So we need to, again, think of embracing healthy lifestyles, embracing people in our lives, having a sense of purpose, enjoying ourselves and being physical, as well as cautious risk taking. So, Seth, I know you didn't want to be authority on this, but you are very healthy. What have you determined to work for you?
I mean, so one thing that I think, and this is more of a recent thing, I've had trouble with like sleep forever, it seems, and one of the things that I think is helping me recently is antioxidants with sleep. So things like I take a carotenoid supplement, which so essentially, you know, beta carotene and other carotenoids, I guess. So these are like the precursors of like vitamin A. So that seems to be helping me, and I think I've been taking green tea as pills, which sounds crazy, but I find that helps. And so sometimes if I wake up in the middle of the night, I mean, maybe I'll take like a CoQ10 carotenoid supplement and this green tea supplement, and then I feel like I can sleep a little more. So that's my thing nowadays, it seems.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And how much is turmeric part of your diet?
That's an interesting one. I can definitely. It's not a big part of my diet, but if I take turmeric, I can definitely get more sleep. But I also feel sometimes for me, I feel like uh, I'm not as smart the next day. So I think it
Wow.
and actually there's some potential reason for that. I think there's like turmeric affects. It has to do with essentially like neuronal growth, right? And it's actually, I think it restricts it in some ways or something. But so it's relaxing. It's an antioxidant, but I think it does something weird. So I try to avoid taking that one recently. But I think it's I mean, maybe others, maybe it's fine for them. Maybe they don't have that same effect.
Have you looked at the ratio in terms of dietary intake of CoQ10, acetyl L-carnitine, alpha lipoic acid, and acetylcysteine in turmeric? I'm getting into the weeds here, but I just was wondering if that.
The
It,
ratio, like you're saying,
so,
of
but
those different things.
so when I supplement, and this is a side, and for the
Okay,
folks at home, I'm not suggesting you do this individually. It's my own little craziness that works for me, but uh, I will use a lot of N-acetylcysteine, a lot of SAMe methyl donors, and sulfhydro donors, as well as acetyl L-carnitine and alpha lipoic acid and CoQ10, and then supplement with turmeric.
got it. Yeah, and I
All
I
right.
I mean I'm very sympathetic to that. I mean I think what a lot of the things you mentioned, I find help me, and they're antioxidants. And to your point, I mean, some of them are having that effect through like sulfation, right? And so that's
Mm-hmm.
something that definitely helps me with sleep, and I'm sure it helps with a lot of good things in terms of longevity and things. So for example, carnitine includes sulfur, and SAMe obviously includes sulfur, and so there's something good about sulfation, which is a natural process for cleaning out garbage, right?
Yes. So the sulfur binds the toxic elements. If you would should detoxify yourself, uh, that does not mean for the folks back home that you eat rotten eggs.
I love your ringtone. It's the best. It's like the perfect comic relief.
Yeah. Anyway, but looking for supplements that are sulfhydro donors, and you may find yourself less toxic. Seth, did you want to say anything in closing? Because
Uh, well, I think this has been a lovely podcast, and I think that the ideas that you brought up about having a balance to your life, and making sure
Is
that
that
you
who? Was that me?
get your exercise, and some of these other ideas about what to
Background
eat
music.
and what to consume, I think are wonderful. So this is so I hope it's good for your listeners. Anything you wanted to
okay.
say, Dad?
Well, just great appreciation for you joining us. I hope that we can prevail because you are just a fount of wisdom and inspiration. And if you could join us in the future, it would be super. And Todd, thank you for your transparency.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Todd too. Yes, and the ideas around yeah, well, all sorts of good ideas about um, what to be aware of in terms of diet, right? Like
right.
eat what works for you, right?
It's crazy because this is going to sound wild, but at what point do you decide? Because I love to eat, I love food, I love to cook, all that. When does that you have to almost pull back on your love of eating and food to pick up your self love? You know what I mean, for your diet,
Absolutely.
quote unquote. That freaks me out. What do you have, a cheat day, Doc? Is that how you do it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear Todd.
Do you have a cheat day?
For the diet.
I'm not perfect. I am absolutely not perfect.
Right, right, right.
But I look at that and say, okay, I don't think I will do that again for a while.
Right.
Like my challenge, I think, is, and it's one of the things that's unique to Reno, is an all-you-can-eat sushi bar.
Right.
And if you think about all the salt and various kinds of biohazards you find in an all-you-eat sushi bar, it's not ideal. But even talking about that right now
makes me want it.
Yeah, provokes food craving. Now, Seth, you're very fortunate that you have poke shops.
Yes,
back
yes.
east.
I'm sure
Yes,
they have
so-
poke shops in Reno. They
Yeah,
don't
we're
have,
starting to get a few.
We have poke shops here, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying the thing that we have that is unique to Reno is, or relatively unique, is the all-you-can-eat sushi palaces.
Well, and
we're next door to one. We could just walk 20 feet and have all you can eat sushi right now if we wanted to.
Wow, but we also have Todd's amazing submarine sandwiches, right?
Thank you, Seth. We're literally sitting inside the best sandwich shop in northern Nevada.
And how should the listeners get there?
They just have to look up Beach Hut Deli Reno.
Oh, wonderful.
And the chemistry here is wonderful. The sandwich team is great. Todd and Scott have recruited some really good people. And I will attest to the very best tuna sub in town.
Wow, and you're an expert on that.
I am indeed, yeah. Okay.
So when you slip up, you just get back on track diet-wise, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but the other thing I would say about all you can eat, your foot-long tuna sub is an all-you-can-eat tuna sub. It's virtually impossible.
I told Seth that a couple weeks ago. I was like, Seth, this guy eats the tuna sub for 3 days.
Wow.
But I mean, in his defense, it's literally gigantic. It's a big, big sandwich. So
awesome.
The only thing I've done that I'm sure will disgust you and the listeners is I will take the tuna sub.
Don't say it. You're going to say it.
Will I say it?
Yeah.
I'll say it anyway. Okay. I'll take the tuna sub, put it in a Pyrex bowl, add olive oil, and zap it, and then eat it with a knife and fork. And those of you out there,
Seth is laughing.
Yeah, well, I'm laughing because this is the Grandpa Tom. I'm sorry, Dad's solution to everything, which is add olive oil. You never can have too much olive oil.
Right. Well, I mean, it's speaking of longevity.
That's right. It's very healthy.
Did we just uncover the secret?
That's right. Not only Mediterranean diet.
Right. It's a plug for part of your biological heritage, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Where would Italian and Greek people be without olive oil? Or Spanish people that well?
True that. I am an Italian man.
Okay. Well, guys, it's been an absolute joy. Once again, I will echo Ringo Starr. I get by with a little help from my friends.
It was awesome. It's always awesome. I think the three of us have great conversations. I'm sorry, guys, everyone out there, that I'm not as schooled as these guys.
But no, you're great. You're great.
I definitely have a good time learning. And today I was very, very inspired by their mini intervention on me to get my shit together. So,
well, I would say this, Todd, given your charm, your humility, and your charisma, you are a key part of this team. And I would say for most of the folks out there, it's far easier for folks to identify with you than some of the geek moves that I make.
Right. But the geeks make the world go around.
Okay. All right, guys. Hope to see you next week.
All right. Thank you so much, Seth.
Thank you. Great talking to you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.